Hello everyone, Stjepan here. Sorry for not making any videos for about 5 days. I had some technical issues because I forgot the password of my account and then I couldn't log in, and then I had to wait for my account to be unlocked and so on and so on. So finally now I was able to log in and to upload some videos. Anyway, I'm back with an amazing game, one of Fischer's most famous games ever played, from the 67 Interzonal tournament played in Tunisia, in Sousse, in a game which he played against Lhamsuren Myagmarsuren, who is the best Mongolian chess player in history. He was the Mongolian champion for 5 or 6 times. And the first fun fact about the game is that Fischer couldn't spell his opponent's name, so he just wrote down Mongolia under the name. And furthermore, Fischer resigned from the tournament after 10 rounds. He was, he had his requests as always in the late 60s. He wanted his conditions to be met in order for him to stay in the tournament. The organizers, FIDE, just couldn't accept all of them, and that's why he resigned. He ended up with 8.5 out of 10 rounds, so a great score. And in the end, Larsen won the whole event with 15.5 out of 21. So Fischer resigned 11 rounds before the end of the tournament. And had he played, I think he would have won convincingly, as he did in those years. Anyway, this is how he gave up a chance to become a world champion in 1968, and so he had to wait another 4.5 years for 72 and his match against Spassky, and who knows, perhaps he was ready in 68 as well. And this game is also famous because Fischer played 2 moves which were alien strength, I would say. I'm not sure that many of today's grandmasters would see those moves. And it was in a variation which is still popular today. It was up until move 14 or 15, it's still theory, mainline theory, and the last game played from this position on move 15 was between Anish Giri and Wesley So in 2017. So 2 top grandmasters played last year, so a famous variation which, okay, Fischer didn't invent it, but he definitely found a lot of improvements in the King's Indian attack. So, Fischer had the white pieces, e4 of course, we have e6, the Mongolian Lhamsuren Myagmarsuren wanted to enter the French defense, but Fischer plays his first surprise, he plays d3, avoiding the mainline French with the move d4. Now we have d5, knight to d2, preparing to recapture the pawn if needed, knight f6, g3, and going into the King's Indian setup, the King's Indian attack. Now c5, bishop g2, and this is all now the main line. It was main line even back then, and Fischer made one move which wasn't main line, but it's still okay. So knight to c6, knight g to f3, trying to finish development, bishop e7, both sides castle, and here the main move for white is rook to e1, after which black is going to play b5, a5, and expand on the queen side, and white is going to in some positions play e5. But instead of that, after black castled, Fischer played pawn to e5 immediately, forcing the knight to d7. Now we have rook to e1, and this could actually, the move order is just reversed, and he could have played rook e1 and e5 later on. Now b5, knight to f1, moving in anticipation of black cramping down his queen side. So knight to f1, and here b4 was played. The main move is a5, but I think b4 isn't such a big mistake. Anyway, if you can see the engine evaluation on the right side of the board, the engines fancy black in this position, and they say that black is better. It's minus 0.6. So, but practically speaking, white is okay. It's just that he didn't use the time optimally to develop, but he's remaneuvering his pieces first. Now b4, h4, Fischer is expanding on the king side, and the plan is to transfer the f1 knight to h2 at some point, or to e3, and to be able to play knight f3 to h2 if needed, so making some room for the knights, and also trying to reduce the squares from the dark squared bishop on e7. Now a5 is played, bishop to f4, reinforcing the center, reinforcing the e5 square, a4, a3, and now the expansion had to be stopped. Now we have b takes a3, b takes a3, and this is the last move before they exit theory. This was played in the game Anish Giri Wesley So last year. Now knight to a5, knight to e3, and perhaps trying to get the knight, one knight to g4, one to g5. So you can see that Fischer's pieces are already grouping very close to the black king, and that Fischer has more options in the attack and more possibilities to create an attack, while at the same time black's pieces are just stuck on the queen side and on the first rank, so not really too many attacking prospects. You can see that the knight on a5 is misplaced. This was in fact a mistake. Today this move isn't played. This knight is okay, but it doesn't really have the f6 square, and as long as e5 is covered, then this knight is almost useless. The bishop has to develop to b7, to this diagonal, and this bishop has to find a better place, perhaps here, but it will take some time for black to develop, and this is why engines think that white has equalized now. The move knight to a5 was the main mistake. Now we have bishop a6 by black, not bishop to b7, and now bishop to h3. Bishop to h3 is an okay move, but I believe that he should have played bishop to g5. That was more promising, I think. I'm sorry, knight to g5, because after knight g5, bishop b7, the bishop would have to return here. Queen to g4, this is the best line for both sides. So bishop g5, hg5, rook a7, rook a to b1, and d4. And you can see now that black is challenging the log diagonal and the bishop on g2, which is key in this position, because Bobby Fischer is going to use this bishop to his advantage, to his great advantage later on. But now after bishop a6, bishop h3, we have d4 by black, which is a double-edged move, especially since the bishop isn't on b7. Had the bishop been developed to b7, then d4 would have been a much stronger move, because the bishop is controlling the whole diagonal. But now it's not the same. We have knight to f1, of course the knight has to retreat, knight to b6, knight to g5, getting into the attack. And the best move here was to take the knight, simply relieving some of the attacking pressure, because white is very quick in the attack, and you can see that both bishops and the knight and the queen are able to come into the attack quickly. Knight d5. Challenging the bishop on f4, we have bishop to d2, saving the bishop. Now bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5, queen to d7, getting away from the attack, and now queen to h5. And, well, it's not too dangerous yet, the position is equal, but if black isn't careful, white could get a completely winning position in a few moves, and you are going to see that happen in exactly 3 moves. Rook f to c8, knight to d2, trying to get the knight into the e4 square, or into the f3 square, so to make sure it could get to g5 or to f6. Now we have knight to c3, and this is now, well, knight to c3 was a losing move, because Fischer has such a deep tactical blow which wins the position immediately, and it's so hard to see, because it's not what you think. It's not, once the move is played, you might think, okay, yeah, that's simple tactic, but it's not really that. He played bishop to f6, letting Myagmarsuren just capture the bishop if he wishes to, and he didn't. Black didn't take the bishop. Now, you might think that taking is too dangerous, but that's really not that obvious. Let me show you that. So g takes f6. After g takes f6, e takes f6. Firstly, black has only one move, and if black plays queen anywhere or any other move, then queen to g5 is checkmate in 2 moves. If black plays king to f8, then this is a checkmate in 3 moves, because queen takes h7, and now this is checkmate whatever black does. So the only move after e takes f6 is king to h8, and this is what Fischer had to calculate. Now the move queen to h6, trying to threaten checkmate, is just losing, because after rook to g8 you have nothing, so that doesn't work. After king to h8, you have to play knight to f3, and this is the hard part. He sacrifices a bishop for long-term compensation, and there isn't really a checkmate. You just have a much better position, even though you are a piece down, and you're going to recover your piece about 5 moves on. So now knight to d5 would have to be played by black. Queen to h6, defending the f6 pawn. Rook g8, knight to e5, looking at the f7 pawn, but that's not really the purpose of the move. Queen c7 would be the best move. Bishop to g2, trying to get to this diagonal to threaten checkmate on h7. Rook a to e8, bishop e4, and now you have to sacrifice your knight, otherwise you are losing, because you can't defend here. So knight takes f6 is temporarily defending the h7 square. Queen takes f6 check. You have to play rook to g7, and now knight to g4. And this is what Fischer must have calculated before playing bishop to f6. And this is absolutely astonishing. It's 8 moves. Well, black doesn't really have that many options, but still, it's amazing that he managed to calculate that. Because after knight to c3, bishop to f6 is a risky move if you are not sure that you are recovering a piece. You have to, I mean, it takes an engine about 10 seconds to calculate that. So for a human, it's about an hour, and Fischer was just much quicker than that. But anyway, after bishop to f6, his opponent didn't capture the bishop. He played queen to e8, which is the best move. And now we have knight to e4, getting the knight into the best possible square. Now you can capture the knight and then rook takes. I believe that's a good idea because the knight is just too strong. And of course Fischer is still leaving the bishop unpre on the f6 square. If you take, then the same principles could apply. And here his opponent plays g6, which is a bad move. This is just losing. If you don't take the bishop, you are slightly worse. After g6 you are losing. Now we have queen to g5. Knight takes c4, rook takes c4, c4, and Fischer just ignores that, h5, forcing through black's kingside, cd3, rook to h4, not even caring about the pawn, and about the fact that black can queen with check, because that doesn't really matter. We have rook to a7, trying to defend laterally along the 7th rank. Bishop to g2, and this was the key move in the position. Fischer is trying to get the bishop to the e4 square, and we are going to see why that's important. And here his opponent plays d takes c2, threatening to queen with check, but that really isn't such a strong threat. Now you can calculate, of course, that if Fischer allows c1 queen, check, rook takes check, simply king to h2, and you don't really have anything. That is, of course, if white can checkmate. And now, after dc2, this is just a checkmate in 7 moves. In this position, after bishop to g2, he should have played queen to f8. This was the only move to keep black in the position. And this is a long line in which white ends up much better. You are going to see how here. So you take the queen, and you basically win the position, but in about 20 moves. And there's nothing black can do about it. But after bishop g2, d takes c2, the winning move here is queen to h6. And now after queen to h6, his opponent tried queen to f8, trying to defend, but that doesn't really work. And now I wonder if you can spot the winning tactical shot, which is perhaps one of Fischer's most famous moves. In this position, there's well, he put the bishop from h3 to g2 for a reason. He's going to place it on the e4 square. And now if you consider all 3 attacking pieces, the rook and the 2 bishops, then you don't really need the queen to checkmate. And that's why he took on h7, just to open up the position. So queen takes h7 check, and in this position his opponent resigned. And now if he takes with the king, let me just show you this, king takes, then that's a checkmate in 2 after this. It's double check, so you can't really run away with your king, you can't go back. You have to capture with the king, because you have to get away from here as well. So now king takes, and now this is checkmate. I think this is one of the most beautiful finishes to one of Fischer's games, and definitely one of his most memorable games. And once again, I'm sorry, and he was perhaps troubled by the fact that he didn't manage to finish the tournament, but he had his flaws despite being a chess genius, and who knows, perhaps he would have won the world championship 4 years earlier if he could have just been a bit more normal. Okay, everybody, once again, sorry for not making any videos for a long time. I hope I can get back on track now and start making at least a video a day. I have a lot of work and I've had some technical issues, as mentioned. And thanks very much for watching. I will see you tomorrow, and stay tuned for more chess. See you later. Bye.